Hello and welcome to the Rangers Review pre-match. Briefing on Rangers versus Leipzig. I've lost my mind. I can barely speak. As you can probably tell by my intro, they are not the best. But there we go. We just carry on. Josh, you're at Ibrox, as everybody can tell, because they can see the blue seats behind you. You're in the press box there. And I need to go through this team because it's just dropped, and I'll get your reaction. So first of all, let's get who is in that Rangers starting 11. It is McGregor, Tavernier, Goldson, Bassi, Barisic, Lundstrom, Jack, Kamara, Aribo, Wright and Kent. There is no Kemar Roofe in the squad. The subs are McCrory, McLaughlin, Diallo, Davis, Ramsey. So Aaron Ramsey does make it. Sands, Balogun, Sakala, Arfield, King and Lowry. So Kemar Roofe, Josh, separate to the rumour mill, separate to the news that was flying around that he was pretty much certain to get some sort of involvement. It looks like there might have been a setback or something because he's not in the squad at all. What's your reaction?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a team that people would have picked optimistically, Johnny. It's the same team that started away in Leipzig, which means that Scott Wright starts again. I think he's done okay, but obviously he's not probably the player you'd have ideally starting in a semi-final in European competition. Up for him to go and prove everyone wrong, though, absolutely. No Kemar Roofe, I think, is a real big blow, predominantly being because I think if you look at the last game against Braga, as the music gets a little bit louder, you think how important he was in that game, Johnny, in terms of that final goal. And we spoke about this yesterday, I think, making that dart into the box. Striker's movement, and obviously to score goals you need that. It's going to take a big effort. What you would say is that the team has presumably been working on training on playing without a striker. This hasn't been forced upon them in the last 24 hours. I think having Aaron Ramsey is a big boost on the bench to hopefully come on as well. So this is probably, not the ideal team, but Ibrox, the surrounding areas are really busy, starting to fill up here. The atmosphere is going to be fantastic, and I think that's a team selection that has plenty of physicality for the likes of Lundstrom, Kamara, even Wright in the forward line. So Sakala's come off the bench, Ramsey's come off the bench. Big blow not having Kemar Roofe.
Yeah, listen, there's a lot of negativity, isn't there, about that lineup, and there's no getting away from it. People are disappointed. They expected Kemar Roofe. I expected Kemar Roofe. I predicted that he'd be in this morning. Joshua, you called it. I have to give you credit. People were slaughtering you this morning, but you didn't think Kemar Roofe was there. I thought Aaron Ramsey probably wouldn't make it and Roofe would, but that is not the case. Now, Joe Aribo, as a number 9, as a false 9, however you want to call it, however you want to frame it, it's huge tonight for him, isn't it? I mean, it's monstrous. They've got Sakala if they need him, but this is the biggest match of Joe Aribo's career.
Yeah, and I actually tweeted out, I'm just trying to find it just now, Johnny, a stat earlier I found today. I was just perusing through the kind of Europa League stats prior to the game, and I was very surprised to find out that Joe Aribo had the highest XG assisted, so effectively the best underlying chance creation numbers in the knockout stages. And of the players that are still in the competition, Joe Aribo's total is higher than the next player, who is Lundstrom, who plays for Frankfurt. Also made the second highest number of deep completions in that same time frame. So what those show is effectively, it's something that probably a lot of us, it's an easy criticism, I think, of Joe Aribo, because what he's lacked throughout his Rangers career is that end product, is a clinical nature in and around the box, which has improved at points throughout the season. But I think you look at recent rounds, and he has actually played well in some big games. But as you say, tonight's a completely different kettle of fish, because you need someone to be active in the box. But you go back to the last European game here, Johnny, the Braga game, and obviously James Tavernier scores after 1 minute and 30 seconds, and it's Aribo being active in the box, kind of helping the ball through to him, if you will, for Tavernier to open the scoring. But I think that team lineup, Ryan Jack will do what he does always in Europe, which is enable Tavernier to play in the last man, and it will mean that when Rangers build play down the right, switch it to the left and try and stretch play that way, and then do what they did in the last tie, which is then set the ball back for Barisic. You have Tavernier arrive, and then hopefully a little bit unmarked and a little bit to the surprise of Leipzig, although we'll know all about him. I'm sure, having done their due diligence. But yeah, you need someone to step up and provide goals. The other thing you would say is that no away goals. If this game is 0-0 at half time, if this game is 0-0 at 60 minutes, the crowd will still be with it. You only have to go back to the game last night. I know it's an extreme example, but in European competition with a crowd like this, the tie will be alive. And listen, it's also a difficult scoreline for Leipzig because, what do they do from the start, Johnny? Do they go and be really aggressive and risk conceding an early goal? Do they try and sit off and contain, but then risk conceding that way as well and coming under pressure? So it's all there for Rangers as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for, I think, a large majority of these players, and the crowd will be with them. And whoever is in that starting 11, I think, based on previous rounds, what this ground has shown and this team together has shown is that they can defy expectation and play above probably their expected performance ceiling. So fingers crossed that repeats itself for a fourth time tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, this is going to be a monumental game. There's no doubt about it. Listen, this is the biggest game of our journalistic lives. There's no getting away from it. The last time that Rangers were in this stage of the competition, it was Florence. Nobody gave them a hope, and they got through against their own play. This is very much, in terms of being in Scotland, being at Ibrox, the opportunity that awaits in the final in terms of the teams that could get there. Rangers have got a fantastic opportunity here. So it's absolutely massive. There's no doubt it's a blow that they don't have a centralised striker, an established striker there that can come in. What you wouldn't give for Alfredo Morelos tonight, Joshua, you would chop your fingers off to get the Colombian up there tonight. Can you imagine what he would be like? He would be a whirling dervish, a Tasmanian devil up front for Rangers tonight, knowing that he's in the shop window, the little bugger. And he would be absolutely all over that pitch, showing what he can do. Rangers don't have him. They don't even have Kemar Roofe, which is a blow. But you know what? Joe Aribo has all the talent in the world. And maybe, just maybe, he can pull it off tonight. Maybe he can do something on the biggest spotlight he'll ever come under in his career. Perhaps he'll finally grab a game by a bull by the horns and grab a game by the scruff of the neck and really show what he can do.
Yeah, and I think as well, Johnny, on that is what you see for me with Fashion Sakala at Celtic Park is quite contrasting to what you see away at Braga. And in that Braga game, I think you had a lot of disconnect between the team wanting Sakala to be an outball. Obviously, it's a different game being at home, and Sakala wanting to spin in behind. I think what you've seen at Celtic Park was when Sakala is afforded the opportunity to run in behind an attack space, he can be pretty useful in those situations. And we've not really seen that at all, because if you think about the games that we've seen Fashion Sakala as a central striker, off the top of my head, I can think of Motherwell at home, just before Steven Gerrard. I can't think of many more occasions where it's a different game because you're trying to create space instead of space being there afforded to you because of the way the opposition sets up. So, again, to go back to last night as an example, substitutions can play a big part in these types of games. If you've got someone like Aaron Ramsey to come off the bench, if you've got Sakala, if you've got space to attack, Rangers do have options as much as it's not ideal. And I think the fact that Van Bronckhorst has got to this stage of the competition, as we said today, without his players and without a couple of key players, is proof that he can be flexible as a manager and he can work out solutions. So, I'm sure the stadium will be optimistic regardless of the team news. Completely agree with you on Joe Aribo. I think that for a couple of players tonight, if they do leave in the summer, you don't want to leave within any area of your Rangers career unfulfilled in terms of legacy. You want to have that performance you can look back and say, I seized the occasion on this night. I led the team from the front, and for Aribo, big night from him. He's got all the ability in the world, and Ryan Kent as well. I fancy him. I thought even in the leg in Germany, Johnny, even though Rangers didn't have much offensively, Kent, when he got the ball, I thought looked really lively.
I'm going to interrupt you there, Joshua, because let's go into OBV in a minute. I'll explain what it is, and I'll get you to talk about it a little bit. But for anyone who's just joined, I want to go through the team again, because I know there's lots of people now coming on and joining live. So the team is Alan McGregor in goals, Tavernier right back, Calvin Bassey and Connor Goldson in the centre of defence. You've got this is not in position lineup, so I'm just going to go through it as is. So it's McGregor, Tavernier, Bassey, Lundstrom, Goldson, Jack, Kent, Aribo, Kamara, and Wright. That is the lineup as it stands So, I mean, Joshua, let's touch on OBV, on ball value. Now, this is the stats bomb metric that is used to judge a player's overall performance. So, for example, if you've got a Ryan Kent and he goes on a mazy run and he beats 5 people, he plays in Joe Aribo, who crosses the ball for Kemar Roofe to tap home. In that scenario, Kent doesn't get anything because Aribo gets the assist and Roofe gets the goal. So what OBV does is it measures everything that the player does and gives them an assigned value for that. So it's seen as a kind of killer stat in a way to how to measure player performance. Now, you picked out, and I saw on Twitter, you had a number of high-performing Rangers players. Do you want to just quickly talk us through that in terms of the Europa League this season?
Yeah, so it's specifically from the knockout stages, Johnny. I think just obviously because it was really a different manager for 4 of the games in the group stage, and this is, I guess, there wasn't that many actually memorable performances from the group stage apart from Van Bronckhorst's last game here. It was first game here, sorry. So from the knockout stages, and this is per 90, Calvin Bassey is the 3rd highest defensive action on ball value. So of all the defensive actions Calvin Bassey made through a number of different, there's a number of different defensive actions, he's 3rd in terms of the value that places in the overall prevention of goals. Ryan Kent is a 3rd highest carry and dribble on ball value. So as you're saying, Johnny, a good example is if Ryan Kent goes in the run and provides it to someone else, or indeed if Ryan Kent goes in the run, crosses for someone and there's no one on the end of it, it attributes value to that action because it's still showing that he's creating chances. And obviously there's no perfect way sometimes to measure it, but this gives a pretty holistic view, as you said. And finally, James Tavernier, and obviously set pieces come into this, but nonetheless they still have to be put on the plate. The highest pass on ball value in the knockout stages, and the 3rd highest overall on ball value. And the only 2 players that are ahead of James Tavernier, Johnny, are Mateus, who's the Braga goalkeeper in the last round, who obviously kept out Rangers 5.5 XG or whatever ridiculous number it was, and was really good, as we highlighted before the game with Braga, was really good in their run to that stage. And then Christopher Nkunku, who we know all about because he's Leipzig's best player and is kind of coveted by a lot of top clubs at the moment. So I think for all the conversation about Rangers not being punching above their weight to be here, they have players who in their own right I think are deserving performance to be at this stage. You look at James Tavernier's consistency and his ability. You look at Calvin Bassey, how he's come on this season, and his I think how useful he can be in games of this magnitude. Also, we've seen that in the semi-final. And obviously Ryan Kent, we know in space how dangerous he can be. He's probably not shown his best form often in the league because of the constraints that are put on him. And obviously, there's arguments to be had about that. But, we're talking about European football tonight. We know how valuable he can be. You only have to think about how many penalties he's won in the run to this stage, Johnny, to kind of get a picture of how valuable he is when he's carrying the ball. So I guess that gives a picture of some of Rangers' key performers. You've also got to think about players like John Lundstrom, who are so influential to get to the stage, Connor Goldson. And, in the last round, Borna Barisic was really important as well. So I think, in particular, without many goal scorers in the box, the Barisic to Tavernier delivery will be crucial tonight.
I'm seeing a few things on Scott Wright, so I want to give a little bit of a defence of Scott Wright and Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's selection of him, and I'll get your take on it, Joshua. The thing is about Fashion Sakala is he looks so much better when he's not playing off the right. I don't think. Yeah. I think of his 3 positions that he can play, off the right is his least effective. Unfortunately, though, for Rangers, you've got a mainstay on the left in Ryan Kent, and Rangers will not move him from there because that's where he's at his very best. And if you move him, you're losing so much of your overall ability because he's such a good player. So he must remain out there. And what that means is Sakala must fit into as a round peg in a square hole, almost. Now, that's fine for most games. When you're going up against really good opposition, I don't think you want a player like Fashion Sakala who can be mercurial on the right. At least with Scott Wright, I think you roughly know what you're going to get. He's a very, very good ball carrier. He can produce big moments, and he'll cause them problems. Now, whether or not his final ball's good enough, that we can talk about that all day. But he's got the skill set I think that's a little bit more consistent than Sakala. Sakala's more of a goal threat. There's no doubt about that. But I think on the right, I'd go with Scott Wright. If we're talking about on the left, definitely Sakala. Through the middle, definitely Sakala. But that's not the role he's been asked to do tonight. And for me, Scott Wright, as frustrating as it'll be for people, and yes, of course you would rather have Kemar Roofe. I think that's a reasonable shout.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, Johnny, and I think you look at the semi-final when Scott Wright comes on after 40 minutes or half an hour for Aaron Ramsey instead of Sakala, and Sakala comes on late in the game to make an impact. Why? Because it's a tight game. Wright needed to be functional, I guess, and enable other attacking players to make the difference. And Sakala eventually came on to provide energy and a little bit of, in the end, incision in the box. It was a really good run, if you remember, to help it into the back of the net via Starfelt deflection. So I think it probably suggests that Rangers understandably aren't looking to maybe put 3 or 4 past Leipzig in the first 20 minutes as they kind of did against Red Star, or the first 50 minutes. I think an early goal will still be their aim, but I think they're playing the long game with their substitutions as well. And I agree with you on Scott Wright. We've said 100 times, his end product isn't great. I think he applies himself well. He's got good energy, he can carry the ball well, and I don't think you can question his application. And Van Bronckhorst has brought him back into the fold. And if I think there's one thing you have to recognise by getting to this stage of the competition is you have to trust your manager and trust your manager's calls on team selection, because there's a lot of selection choices that he's made throughout that not many people have agreed with him on, but ultimately he's been vindicated in them.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Listen, I think Giovanni Van Bronckhorst has earned the trust and understanding of the Rangers support. He's pulled off so many strange calls that have worked incredibly well in Europe, and he is clearly a guy who knows his tactics inside out. He watches games and sees things that we just don't see, and I think you just have to hope that he believes that there's something in the ball carrying element that Scott Wright brings to the table that will cause this Leipzig side problems. I'm quite sure, Joshua, it's to do with Angelino and how Angelino gets forward, and if you're going to exploit that space, you need someone who's quick, you need someone who's direct, you need somebody who can run and basically go into that space and exploit it. So is that person going to be Fashion Sakala? I don't think he works out there on the right, not at this level. It's not worked. So if your choice is Wright or Sakala, for me, I totally understand why Wright's in at this point, even though I don't think Scott Wright is necessarily the long-term answer for Rangers. That's a separate argument. Totally. But I think you've got to trust Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. There's a lot of people saying that. Got Malky here just in. Is Roofe in? No, he's not Malky. He's not in the squad at all. A shock for everyone, I think, that Kemar Roofe hasn't made it. But Aaron Ramsey is on the bench, but no Roofe.
Yep.
Roofe has not made it tonight. Listen, Joshua, just a final thing. How are you feeling in general before this? We'll let you go because you've got a bit to do before the game starts. The atmosphere seems to be building somewhat. There's a lot more people sort of arriving behind you over the 20 minutes that we've been on this call. What's your overall take at this moment in time?
I think the important thing last week, Johnny, was that you kept the score to... Well, you kept it so that there was anticipation before the game and the crowd was given reason to believe. And being only a 1-goal deficit, that's absolutely the case. You can sense that, I think, in and around the stadium, and I think it will only grow as the game gets closer, that the atmosphere will just be... hopefully unlike anything a lot of us have ever experienced inside Ibrox, and hopefully even bigger and better than previous rounds. So yeah, it's a rare occasion, privileged to be here, very much looking forward to it, and hopefully we're having a very positive conversation about this whatever time at the end of this game. I don't think either of us will care if it is a positive conversation.
Well, guys, what I would say, there's 318 of you on at the moment. We will be back at half-time. You can get us via Twitter Spaces. You go to @RangersReview55, set a reminder, and you can join us for a live feed at half-time. We'll take you through the events of the first 45 minutes, give you our take, our analysis, and hopefully we might be able to get a few of you on to tell us what you think briefly of the game. Obviously, we don't have 40 minutes to go through it, but we will give you the best that we can over the 15 minutes that we have. Obviously, everything that's going on tonight in terms of the game from the Rangers Review will be on the website. You can go on there. It's £3 for 3 months at the moment to subscribe. Cracking value. That is less than a pint, a lot less than a pint in most Glasgow pubs now. And you will get all the work that we do, add light, so it's not going to be like a bad viewing experience for you. And you have all our big interviews, all our tactical analysis, and you help support us to do these kind of videos and what we do every day on the site, whether it be on here, whether it be on Twitter Spaces, on YouTube, whether it be in terms of the writing stuff that we do. So go along there and subscribe. That would be terrific. We hope that you have, every single one of you, a brilliant night. And we hope that we're coming back to you at half-time with some really, really good news. And certainly at full-time, that we're all talking about how in the hell we are going to get to Seville, rather than being downcast and downbeat. And I, for one, I'm sure that's going to be the case. I'm predicting a Rangers victory. I know Josh is too, so let's hope that we are